National Economic Council approves additional investment of $250 million into Nigeria's Sovereign Investment Authority. GDP grows by 2.28% as oil production hits three-year high. Nigeria imports $600 million worth of cassava derivatives annually. Plus, Export Promotion Council targets $200 million from exporting 7 commodities. Details of these and more on this edition of Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. And I am Moplang Dakok. The National Economic Council has approved an additional investment of $250 million into the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, the NSIA. NSIA Managing Director Uche Orji said this after NSIA presented its 2018 annual report and 2019 finance update before the NEC meeting. Orji also said the NSIA has declared a profit of 24 billion naira in the first 6 months of the year and declared a total profit of 44.3 billion naira in 2018.
And his group made a profit total of 44.3 billion naira in 2018, and so far in 2019, as of the first 6 months of 2019 for the period ending June 30th, the NSIA updated the council that they have made 24 billion naira of profits so far.
Meanwhile, data made available by the National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) shows that the country's gross domestic product (GDP) grew by 2.28% in the third quarter of 2019. This is 0.17 percentage points higher than the 2.12% revised GDP growth recorded in the second quarter. The previous second quarter GDP figure released by the NBS was 1.94%. GDP report also shows that the average daily oil production in the quarter at 2.04 million barrels per day, its highest in more than 3 years. Despite an increase in crude oil production, the real GDP growth of the oil sector was 6.49% year-on-year. This is 0.68 percentage points lower than the 7.17% recorded in the second quarter. The non-oil sector also grew by 1.85% in real terms during the reference quarter. Now, entrepreneurs, and enterprises. These words perhaps are more than any other and have come to define the story of man's socio-economic evolution over the centuries. Today, entrepreneurship has undoubtedly evolved into an extremely powerful global phenomenon. Business correspondent Benny Adams was earlier at the Shehu Yaradua Center where he spoke with some entrepreneurs.
Young Nigerians today are doing exploits in the world of entrepreneurship. Today I have with me Diola. What do you think is the missing link today? There is an environment that has been created by government to ensure that entrepreneurship thrives better than it is today. What is that missing link?
Collaboration. Effective collaboration, to me, is the missing link. You cannot create an environment and people don't know about it. how do you collaborate if you can't communicate? So I would say maybe communication is the biggest missing link. If you communicate that there are enabling factors that can help the youth grow or develop products and services that can increase the country's or the nation's GDP, then you should effectively communicate that. Then make sure that that enabling environment is accessible enough that they can not only collaborate with you, the government, but with other people either in similar fields or like-minded fields.
Nigeria has moved like 36 places in the ease of doing business in the world, according to the World
According to
Bank.
the world.
Is that enough? There's the issue of capital. There's the issue of credit financing. How can we get that better?
I think the best thing is to take away all that interest that banks keep adding on, because you have to look at it this way. Entrepreneurs, especially growing entrepreneurs, go through the process of the idea stage, the finding people who would accept the product phase, the registering the company phase, the registering the product so that they can put it out on shelves phase. And with all of that, all those come with fees. Now you're saying, okay, we're creating an enabling environment, but the financial assistance is not there, or it is there, but it is so difficult to access, and then the interest on top of it is beyond outstanding. You need to ensure that with everything else that happens in building entrepreneurs, there needs to be an easier form of accessing funds.
And one thing with Nigerian entrepreneur, it's that Nigerian spirit and that ability to persevere and that persistence. Now, Nigerians, the average guy on the streets, believe me, always does more than, right? All they need is just support from financial institution, government, and all that. And one key area that I must commend government is the setting up of EDCs, that's Entrepreneurship Development Center. Now, what the EDC did or achieved is that they build capacity of these entrepreneurs. Now, before the money comes, what are the things you need to do so that when the money comes, you can manage this money effectively? And believe me, the EDCs were awesome. Results are there. So yes, they are doing amazingly well. And the Nigerian entrepreneur, 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 5 has what it takes to compete anywhere.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Emeka. We heard from Diola, and we also heard from Emeka that Nigeria has got what it takes, talking about young entrepreneurs. What they need now is, from the better environment of doing business, is the development or much more enhancement of the entrepreneur development centers across the country. It's over to you in the studio for the continuation of Business Express.
Thank you, Adams. To discuss prospects in entrepreneurship, consolidating the gains and innovating for tomorrow as well, we are here in the studio with an entrepreneur and the operation manager of Corpus Business Development Services, Chibuke Okoli.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for coming on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
So, entrepreneurship, innovation, where is Nigeria right now?
I like to say that entrepreneurship really, as seen in Nigeria and for the most part of the world, is seen as a messiah.
Okay.
To enhance socioeconomic growth.
Okay.
In Nigeria especially, I see it as the one cure for all. Considering the state of the nation, lack of employment, no jobs out there. Most students who graduate from school see themselves out there, no jobs, and all they have to do is look for one thing or the other to, just get by. So some of them dabble into these things, not being really prepared.
Okay.
But then what entrepreneurship and the EDC does now is to actively prepare them, give them the knowledge they need so they can thrive.
All right. What would you say is the place of information technology to the entrepreneur in Nigeria? We just saw the GDP figures released, and we saw that the ICT sector or the ICT industry has contributed much to GDP. So
Yeah.
what would you say is the place of ICT?
I would say it's the future, to be honest.
Okay.
Like you rightly said, in that sector, aside the ICT, also in I like to say in the whole content creation space, I feel like that's the sector where most youth are having, that's the sector that's creating more jobs right now for youth. And I think we should really consolidate on that and try to empower more people in that sector.
Okay. We know that the private sector and invariably the entrepreneur is the, let's say, the driver of major economies. So we see this playing out in major economies. What needs to be done in Nigeria for us to get to that point where we can relax and say government is, at the back and the private sector is ahead?
I think we need to involve the government a lot more. We need to have more entrepreneurs in the active policy making, in policies that affect businesses and how businesses are run in the country. And that's how effectively entrepreneurship can thrive. We need to start understanding and celebrating entrepreneurship for what it is, because at grassroots level, that's the major way in which our employments are being created.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what can businesses like yours do, small businesses, MSMEs, what can they do to be able to, come together with conglomerates, major conglomerates?
So I like to say that, no major conglomerates will have you on the table when you have no value to offer. Okay. So I believe that small and medium-scale enterprises should first of all develop themselves and bring more value to the table. Nobody likes a parasitic relationship or partnership or collaborations. So we have to effectively enhance ourselves and bring actual value to a point where they will feel comfortable enough to trust in what we're doing and engage us.
Okay. So aside joining other conglomerates, what can small and medium enterprises do together with their fellow small enterprises to drive growth?
Yeah, so I believe in strategic partnership with other brands that you have a symbiotic relationship with, who you have the same vision with. So when such small and medium-scale businesses partner together, they can achieve more, for the greater good, instead of seeing themselves as competitors. Competition is good, but collaboration is what we really need, to thrive and grow.
Okay. You saw in our background reports where some of the entrepreneurs were talking about the issue of finance. How key is the issue of finance to the entrepreneur? And is it the only thing, is it the only challenge that you think entrepreneurs face?
No, I really don't think finance is the major issue entrepreneurs face in Nigeria. Okay. I believe that we need to solve this from the grassroots, right, from ground up, from changing the educational system, where I believe that the school structure is formed in such a way that people are, they are taught how to think, what to think, and not how to think. So it's like they're in a box. So we need to start taking very conscious notice about teaching actual skills, problem solving, thought patterns in schools.
Okay.
Yeah, and from that way, and then EDC, enterprise development courses, really. Because giving funds to entrepreneurs is one thing, but when they not understand the business end to distance, how to use the funds effectively to grow, then there's no future for that business. We can't say that we can trust the funds we're giving to you to grow to a point where you can provide employment. So actually having the enterprise development courses fully grounded, learning these things to understand business, the basics of it, and how to thrive and grow it. That's the major thing before you can say you're ready to receive funds.
Okay, so would you, or rather, let me say, which one would you say is priority? Would you say knowledge or funds?
Knowledge first before funds.
Okay. All right, that's good. Let's talk about government policies. We know that government is the one that gives the enabling environment and drives, the economy by putting in policies in place to drive businesses. Yeah. So what policies do you see put in Nigeria to drive entrepreneurship?
Already I must commend the governments for the current ease of doing business in Nigeria, which has really taken us up from where we used to be, over 20 places now. Okay. I'm really hoping that going forward they can take a critical look at some of these policies, both taxes, levies, piled up on small and medium scale businesses. I think that all of these things should really critically be looked at so that the future of entrepreneurship and small businesses can, that we can actually thrive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your final words as an entrepreneur to other entrepreneurs who are watching the program.
My final word is that we must believe in Africa as a continent and Nigeria as a nation, and in ourselves to solve our own problems. And the thing about entrepreneurship, I'd like to say, is just the pursuit of opportunities. Look around you, problem solving more than profit making. That's where entrepreneurship really lies, and that's where everyone who truly calls themselves an entrepreneur should focus on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chibuike Okoli of the Corpus Business Development Services Limited for coming on Business Express today.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, let's go to the commodity market where oil prices were toppled from their highest in nearly 2 months on Friday by doubts over future demands for crude as uncertainty continues to shroud a potential US-China trade deal and along with it the health of the global economy. And talking currency, the dollar held overnight gains on Friday as investors clung to the safe haven pending developments in the US-China trade negotiations and amid a growing skepticism about reports of progress in the talks. Let's see how the Naira is exchanging for other international currencies. And the International Monetary Fund says 40% of African countries are in debt distress. The managing director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, who stated this, described Africa as a continent of opportunities and one with many troubles, noting that the focus was to help countries have sound macroeconomic policies, improve the investment climate change, and show it to the rest of the world. She added that what the IMF wants is for this opportunity to be harnessed to the maximum. The Debt Management Office says the federal government of Nigeria bond auction for November was oversubscribed by 102.35 billion naira. The Debt Management Office offered 150 billion naira from 3 instruments. That's the 5-year, the 10-year, and the 30-year bonds for 50 billion naira each to investors at the auction. The total subscription received through competitive bids for the instruments at the auction was 252.35 billion naira, indicating a subscription of 168.23%. Meanwhile, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, says Nigeria imports cassava derivatives valued at about $600 million annually. The governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, said this at a meeting with governors of cassava-producing states. The CBN also signed a memorandum of understanding with Nigeria Cassava Growers Association and large-scale cassava processors, where he pointed out that there was a need to adopt improved varieties and practices that would guarantee better yield, better processing efficiency, increased profit, and improved standard of living for the farmers. And another report from the Central Bank of Nigeria shows that the aggregate foreign exchange, that's forex inflow into Nigerian economy, amounted to $10.89 billion in the month of October. The central bank's economic report for October showed a decline of 0.9% below the level at the end of the preceding month. This was attributed to the marginal decline of 1.1% and 0.7% in the inflow through the bank and autonomous sources. And stocks in Asia steadied Friday trading following days of declines this week amid US-China trade confusion. Let's go over now to Bosede Abel.
European stocks steadied at the start of trading Friday, the 22nd of November, following gains across Asia on renewed hopes that China and the United States would strike a mini trade deal. London's benchmark FTSE 100 index rose 0.96% to 7,307.68. Frankfurt's DAX 30 index gained 0.69% to 13,227.04 points, and CAC 40 also inched up by 0.61% to 5,917.03. Stocks in Asia were mixed, following days of declines this week amid US-China trade war. The Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index was about 0.48% higher. The Nikkei rose 0.32% to close at 23,112.88, while the Shanghai Composite was down 0.63% to about 2,885.29. In the United States, investors and technologists worry that the U.S. is falling behind in the race for dominance in blockchain. The Dow Jones Industrial Average declined by 0.2%, S&P 500 was down 0.16%, and the Nasdaq Composite also depreciated by 0.24%. Back home in Africa, the bourses were dominant in red. Nairobi's All-Share, Namibia's Overall Index, and Ghana's GSA Composite declined, while on the flip side, South Africa's JSE Africa Top 40 and Tunisia's Tunidex were positive.
And on the stock market, the NSE All-Share Index appreciated by 0.50%. It closed at 26,991.42 basis points. Investors exchanged $197.5 million, valued at 2.7 billion naira, in 3,535 deals. Nestle, Okomu Oil, and CCNN were the top gainers for the day, with Nestle gaining as much as 8.70%. The top losers were Nigerian breweries, Dangote Cement, and Dangote Sugar. That brings us to the end of this edition of Business Express. You can access all previous episodes on YouTube, and you can communicate with us on Twitter. The handle is at NTA News Now. The hashtag is BizX. We value your feedback, so keep the mails coming, and join us again next week, Monday, for another edition of the program. I am Muplang Dakok, and as usual, I say keep thinking and doing business.